Bueno, I'm Coralina Rodriguez Meyer. I'm here with my daughter and Ray
Zamora.
Zamora here at the Colonial Cultural Heritage Center. Así. So Ray, tell us about your work and where are we in Miami right now?
Well,
sorry, introduce yourself and then
yes, my name is Ray Zamora. I've been in the fine art business since 1975 in Washington, D.C., where I grew up, although I was born in Cuba. I came in the late 80s to Miami, moved to Miami with my family, opened an art gallery. And about 18 years ago, I heard about this project to build a Colonial style chapel and within Corpus Christi Catholic Church. And I heard about the project, I was invited, and I got hooked. I've been working for it for the past 18 years. At present time, I'm the project director of this dream that we're making happening. We're building a Colonial style plaza. We have about 10 acres of land here in Alapattah near Wynwood and the Design District. And we're building in stages. Stage number one is the chapel, which is an inspiration. It's not a copy, it's an inspiration of Peruvian Baroque chapel of the 18th century. We have built it from the ground up exactly with native materials and also hand-carved wood. We have built it exactly like it was built hundreds of years ago. The artwork inside is all original artwork from South America, 17th and 18th century, colonial art, including sculptures and so forth. And we're almost at the end of finishing phase one, and the second phase will be 3 levels, multiple museums within the plaza. And that's where we are right now. And
okay, wow. So I came to the center through a dear friend, Chris Pina,
yes,
who is family friends
yes,
with you, and he introduced me to this place when I had these sculptures that I was working on, and I just was taken aback by the collection and how the breadth and depth of the works represented really capture kind of the history and the legacy of colonization, but even some of the works are pre-colonial, it appears,
yes,
especially
exactly,
the Moche pottery, for example, de Peru that you mentioned. So I very much, am excited for you to kind of talk about maybe some of the highlights of the collection and how that links into maybe your previous work, maybe
right,
in DC. Did you, or even here in Miami when you had the gallery, was there a connection to Latin American art, or how was this progress for you?
Sure.
And what are the works that you're most excited about in
sure,
the collection?
well, basically, I arrived at age 16 in Washington through the Peter Pan program, kids that came without our parents. Like I said, I settled in Washington, D.C. My first job, actually, I spent 4 years training to become a journeyman jeweler. I'm also a gemologist. I graduated in 1969 and opened my first jewelry shop in Washington, where I used to manufacture and also repair jewelry. And moving the clock forward, in 1975, I had an offer to buy me out. And the offer I couldn't refuse. So then, as it happens, everything happened in my life, unexpectedly. I was offered to buy an established antique and fine art gallery in Washington, D.C. that was started in 1949 by a Cuban by the name of Gonzalez. So I came to the gallery and wow, it was just amazing. 17th, 18th century European artwork and painting and so forth. So I must say, going back as a little child, I used to like to paint, and when I got to Washington, I also went to Corcoran School of Art. And
wow, tú eres artista.
Yes, I studied 2 years drawing there.
Okay, wait, let's pause for a second.
I went to Corpus School and studied for 2 years, and then I began my career in jewelry making and so forth. So anyhow, once I got into the fine arts and antiques, something that really was inside me, I became thrilled by it, and I began to learn about the art. I had good teachers in Washington. Anyhow, moving the clock forward in '79, I had a gentleman from Peru, a diplomat who was stationed at the OAS, and he wanted to sell part of his collection of colonial art, his family collection he had in Washington, and he was advised to come to this gallery, Gonzalez Antiques, where
Somos in Miami.
we're in Miami. As I said, when I saw the paintings, they were beautiful colonial painting from 17th, 18th century. And I began to get an interest on colonial art, and lo and behold, I ended up buying part of that collection, which at a later time I sold some of it to the Sunrise Museum in Charleston, West Virginia, that wanted to begin a collection of colonial art. So that made me come to Miami looking for colonial art so that I can sell to my new acquired client, the museum. And that's how I got started into colonial art. So once here in Miami, and I made these Peruvian friends, they told me about this chapel, that they wanted to build this museum chapel. And I said, what do you mean museum? They said, well, we have about 3 colonial art paintings that we're going to use to decorate. So that was interesting. So we got together, and then I met Father Menendez, the brain behind the whole project. And he told me that he said his dream was not only to build a chapel, but to build a plaza with museums. So, and I said, well, that's very interesting. So he caught me, and I began to give 1%, 2% of my time. Today is 110% dedicated to it. But I have a background on colonial art, and that's what inspired me to be part of it.
Wow.
But it has also people that are beginning to see our project. We've been donated very important Renaissance artworks as well. And I must say that I'm proud to announce that among the collection we have a painting by Rafael Sancion, which is a Sacred Family, which is in Prado Museum they have what is called La Perla, which is exactly the same one as we have, and we have studied it for the past 8 years, and the experts have come to the conclusion that we have the real Raphael.
Wow.
And that's going to be part of our collection. And
wow.
others, antique furnitures, tapestry from the 17th century, that we're going to use all these antiques and furniture paintings to decorate the plaza. So once the plaza is built and you come to visit, it's like going back into the past, whether in Europe or Latin America, where everything is original. And that's what we want to keep.
Wow, yeah. Well, and I think too, the environment and where it's situated is kind of at a critical point too. And
yes.
I think to capture some of the flora, the fauna, but also the people,
exactly.
that surround Miami, which, is currently 68% Latino.
Exactly, mostly Latino.
Latin American. And so, as Andina, my family's mostly Colombian and some Peruvian, encountering this collection was so stunning because it's just rare to see this level of works
right.
In such an intimate setting.
Yes.
And also to kind of contextualize in a different way, looking at the kind of path and the legacy of colonization, because citing the works within a Catholic church is very different than, for example, the Prado, which
yes.
is a museum context. And but I think the key is making it accessible to the public is really
absolutely
very exciting.
Absolutely.
Kind of juncture.
Right, and also the way that we have planned this plaza, it's like in Washington you have the Smithsonian collection. They're within a certain range, all of the museums. So You can spend a whole day and you can visit several museums in the day, and so forth. And that's our idea. When you visit the plaza, you have several museums to visit. You have, all kinds of things. You can spend a whole day, and that's our idea. We're going to have a rare book. We have a rare book collection of and documents pertaining to the history of Florida,
Wow.
as well as Cuba, and so it's not only artwork, but documents in general.
Yeah, and I mean it's telling the story through
Exactly.
these different
Exactly.
modes
Like
of
the-
these different pedagogical modes.
Exactly, yes. From the point of view of America, the Spanish, and that's what we want to. Let's present the facts and let the public decide for themselves.
Yeah, eso me interesa mucho. And I think there's some other aspects of Miami that are really stunning here.
Yes.
Aside from the roosters, the gallinas,
Yes.
there's also, I mean, I think the environmental forces at play. I think, we have development going on all around Wynwood and
Right.
kind of Miami being in this transition period. To have a 10-acre site, I imagine there may have been some discussion around the special area plans, but to be able to kind of, I think, harness all of those conversations on this site has a lot of potential.
Yes.
But wait for 1 second.
So. Oh, sorry.
So, here we are. We're in Wynwood
Yes.
and Alapattah
Alapattah,
border.
yes.
So we're technically in Alapattah, but as we, walk here, you can pass Wynwood and all of the kind of design shops
districts,
and
yes.
murals, which are, mostly graffiti style, and then to come here in this sanctuary,
Sure.
un santuario por, con la
No,
Virgen here, and I have my sculptures installed here. It's very much, in conversation with, issues around climate change, around
Right.
gentrification, all of the
And,
kind of forces.
and we're bringing
at play in
together
there.
the past and the present, with through artworks, which is important. How has evolved through the years. So, from very ancient art to contemporary art, and
Yeah.
it's a joy.
And what has it been like being? How long have you been on this site? 16 years, I think, or.
18 years now. It's
18,
going to be
okay.
18 years. Yes.
And in Alapattah, what has it been like? I mean, your experience being
Well,
here.
fine. Alapattah, back in the 40s and 50s, was a middle-class neighborhood. And that in 1947, Corpus Christi Catholic Church was built. And when it was built, it was planned to be the Miami Cathedral. What happened then is that they approved I-95 to cut across, Alapattah and so forth. So then neighbors did not like that idea, so they started moving away. And then in the late 60s, well, in the early 60s, quite a bit of Cuban immigrants settled in this area, in the Alapattah area. In fact, they came to Corpus Christi and they were baptized there. They got weddings and so forth. So, it has a meaning for us Cubans as well. But then again, they start moving out. So during the 70s, this area of town became really bad neighborhood. Unfortunately, but then again, as it happened, and I had that experience while living in Washington, that I was offered some property in Baltimore, and Baltimore was just like a deserted city. But when the Rouse company began to build Baltimore Harbor, and everything began to expand artistically to a certain area, and that's what I saw. And I told Father Menendez, I think give it some time, but Alapattah is going to be in the center, because if you look Bayside here and Wynwood and everything is coming our way, so it's happening.
Right.
So a great majority here in Alapattah and Wynwood and so forth, majority are Hispanics. That's what in here. And this is where it was decided to open this shop.
Yeah. So, I mean, there were maybe some real estate opportunities
Right.
as the neighborhood shifted.
Right.
that were
It's
taken.
happening. It's happening. The Rubel Collection Museum, it's not less than a mile away from here.
Right.
They just recently moved, and
Yeah.
you know.
So there's, I mean, I think one of the things that I think was key that you touched on was just that, you know, that a lot of the collection came through the Catholic Church, and that families were baptized here, as you said.
Exactly.
You know, you raised your family here as well, and
Yes.
there was a large influx of, you know, of Cubans during the Mariola and the various waves,
Mhm.
but that, you know, again, this idea of family, and that in some
Absolutely.
ways, you know, it almost like the church is part of people's everyday lives.
Absolutely,
And so
it is.
therefore the collections that the families live with in their homes, and they, you know,
They donated
become
because they
acquired by the
right.
church.
They, you know, they wanted a place where it could, you know, they can keep it and future generation can appreciate, you know, and that's what we're doing. We're collecting, and God willing, we're doing it in a way that it could last for hundreds of years, if God permit.
yeah.
Okay, so
Well, and so that's the idea for the museum, to
Right.
be able to care for
Yes.
it properly. And so it's super fascinating. I mean, the word curator just means to take care of, and so it's, for me, it's very interesting because I, you know, was raised Catholic, as most Latin American families
Yes.
are, and you know, it's been a quite an experience for me to go from being raised in here in very low income circumstances and very mixed, you know, race
Yes.
and opportunity community, to then be able to go to art school and architecture school, and to come back now as an adult with a child. You know, I've it's come to the fore. Sorry. I'm going to check on her while this is playing. That relationship and building that kind of weekly connection with families who, you know, are maybe experiencing different points in their life, challenges.
Absolutely.
I think to be able to kind of nurture that relationship over time is very different than, you know, the idea of suddenly when it's time to, you know, somebody's passing, to then
Yes.
pass a collection on. So that to me was very striking, and to have that relationship, as you say, with families that have maybe come here and immigrated from different parts
exactly.
of
Yeah.
the Caribbean, Latin America,
Everywhere,
all
yeah, yeah.
over. Really, it's a fairly
Here
diverse city.
it's like we are one big family. You know, we're united here. You know,
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
So I guess, you know, maybe use that as a segue to think about kind of this triptych within the collection.
Yes.
And, you know, you've had a little time now to experience the work, and I love that you put out some of the pieces. I mean, I'm so grateful for this opportunity to show in the context of hundreds of years of history. And so, you know, one of the pieces that you placed out, I believe for me, but maybe you just had it out, was the Dali print series.
Oh, yes.
Particularly this piece with the lobster, the langosta.
Yes.
So tell me about that, and what was it about that piece that, you know?
Well, this is a collection
to
that
you.
we acquired. It was donated to us about 8-10 years ago by a local family. It was a wedding present one time, and anyhow, it consists of 12 lithographs, and the complete set. It deals with Dali's wife, Gala. She loved food. She was a food.
She was a foodie.
Yes, she was a foodie, and so Dali, all 12, I have to deal with images of food, of all kinds of food, and it's just a Dali. I mean, it's very surrealistic, but wonderful, wonderful, and we have the entire collection. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but that particular piece, I think, I mean, visually it reminded me
Yes.
of this work.
Absolutely,
I
yes.
think certainly the color and
The
the
color,
texture,
absolutely.
and, you know, being langostas, lobsters coming from the ocean.
From the ocean, absolutely.
But there's also a part of the piece where there's beheaded, it looks like maybe religious figures or something, and the maybe Madre Santa is her arms are chopped out, so it's very gory,
Yes.
kind of horrific print. But it's also simultaneous, it's kind of got this strange celebratory quality to it. Of course, like the feast, the Festmahl, as they call it in German, like the huge kind of celebratory feast is sort of happening. But there's other works in the collection, I think. For example, I think even in this sequence where we have the triptych, and then in between the triptych and the Virgin, we have the cross, which is made of, it looks like moche fragment.
Exactly.
Shards.
That was also donated to us by a Peruvian family a number of years ago, and it's, the pieces, they collected these pieces, broken pieces, and the artist put it together as a cross, and it looks great.
Do we know what period or what
No,
year
not
roughly?
really.
Okay.
We will be checking into it soon enough.
I mean,
yes.
that's very striking to me because, I've studied the moche pottery, and, it has so much rich ritual history
right.
within the moche pottery and used for ceremonies of different kinds.
Right.
But I was also struck by, the kind of syncretic power
Yes.
of that piece, because, you're combining, of course, Western, primarily Eurocentric religions
Exactly.
that come through colonization and in some cases destroy some of the histories that had long been thriving, in South America
Right.
and Central and the Caribbean Americas. So can you talk a little bit about syncretismo and kind of what has been your experience over the years, whether in previous collecting or with this collection? Are there key pieces that you feel illustrate?
Syncretism
combination?
happened, since the Spanish arrived in America, and they tried to teach the native, the religious background they brought and so forth, and the native began to see, and especially the artists, they start learning the European way of doing artwork, painting and so forth, but they also felt inside their goddesses and gods and so forth. So in a way, when they start doing their paintings, they created, so that when they see the image, they say, oh, there's Pachamama here, and so it's been evolving, and it's great, and general public loves it. This syncretism, it's beautiful. You have to read into it, which is the beauty of art nowadays. It's not just what is painted. What does it mean? What does it tell you? To look at it and move you, and that's basically what art is all about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think
Point of view of the artist, how they see things, how they,
Well, and to be able to reflect back to
Exactly.
us across time and across cultures and across
Yes.
languages and experiences, and even in this case, religious and spiritual traditions.
Right.
So, but yeah, so I mean, you did mention the Pachamama. I think some of these other syncretic, diosas, por
Yes.
ejemplo, Yemaya
Yemaya.
is a very figures very
Afro-American,
prominently
yes.
in Cuba,
In
por
Cuba,
ejemplo.
absolutely.
And even, so a lot of, even I know, for example, my abuela definitely had, at the entry of her home, there was an altar piece, and so a lot of these different figures, even
Exactly.
though they partially looked like the kind of Catholic Virgin Mary, there was
Absolutely,
definitely
but it meant
combination
something else also, additional,
these other diosas.
the other diosas, yes.
And so do you see that imagery sort of coming through the collection or through the church even as it is now? Like, is that...
Yes, it's happening. I mean, definitely happening, and you see in some of the contemporary artwork that they still carry the same syncretism, and it's happening.
Yeah. I mean, some of the
There's a lot more
pieces-
freedom now, artistically freedom, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Before, the artists were sort of contained, going back to 16th, 17th century, you know, they had to measure what they were painting.
Right. Well, as you're saying, I mean, the risk
Yes, the risk,
was very
exactly.
high to create freely, and so
Exactly.
you
So
know,
it's been evolving.
you could be killed, right, for creating
absolutely.
the wrong image.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah. I
You
mean,
have Michelangelo who, you know, painted the Sistine Chapel. The figures were nude, and the Pope said, no, that cannot be. So he had to cover them. You know?
yeah. I mean, I think the covering. I mean, it's fascinating to kind of break down some of these images.
Exactly.
Even the Virgin Mary. You know, you think about the hair covering. You know, and,
Exactly.
and how that sometimes looks like a hijab in certain paintings.
Yes.
Or, you know, even in some of the paintings that I've seen upstairs, you know, some of them are pregnant. You also have some paintings where there's very sort of sexual innuendos. There's kind of openings in certain locations or decor
Right.
on the painting that's in a very suggestive location. But I think, you know, just to kind of pivot for a moment to this triptych, the Coralina Triptych, I would love to get your interpretation, and I'm curious to hear kind of what, you know, you have so much, a rich lifetime of experience in
No,
art history.
I
I'm
mean, when I
curious.
saw the picture, you know, Christopher sent me the picture of this particular piece. I loved it immediately, and I said, absolutely, I think I have the right spot for it in the garden. You know,
The 3 vacant pedestals.
the 3 vacant pedestal,
Yeah.
and as I saw them, you were putting it together and so forth. You know, all the material that you have collected and putting together, it means so much. You know, it's not just something there. I mean, it's got the spirit. You can sense the spirit of it all. You know, and with Mother Nature and what it means. It's wonderful, and that's the whole idea about art, that you can sit and look at it and begin to get a feedback from the artwork itself. It's not
Yeah.
just something to look at it. You have to.
How does it make you feel?
Great, peaceful, and you know, and I love nature.
Ah.
You know, I love nature. And I'm animal lover. I like all kinds of animals.
Oh yeah.
In my neighborhood, they call me Dr. Doolittle.
Oh, see?
Yeah.
Do you have animals in your home, or
Cats, dogs, all kinds of things. So anyway, I love nature, and this attracts me because of it, you know. Yes, in fact, in the morning I come out here, since we have it here, and I enjoy them very much, and they're peaceful to me.
Yeah. Well, I've had other reactions to the works. People
Well,
saying they're scary, or you know,
true, it
daunting.
depends on the person, sure,
Yeah.
sure. But no, to me they're not scary at all whatsoever. I'm looking at nature, Mother Nature, that's what I see.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm excited that there's little spiders making webs here.
Of course.
Which is so
It's
awesome.
part of nature.
But it really captures the entropy and the growth of something which is actually dead for the most part. Some are inert materials, and some
But
are
look at your
still
surrounding. Look at
decaying.
this. Isn't that beautiful work of art?
Yeah, and then
The
I
nature?
mean, yeah, the Bougainvillea, which has a long history actually.
Okay,
in
so
mythology
say figure
to grow within it.
100 years from now, some artists will work them out and come out with a beautiful artwork. You know, this is what I see here. I see art. I mean, to me, it's not scary whatsoever. You know.
Yeah, well, and I mean, so I collected the coral from the shore that had washed up after hurricanes or
Right.
storms, and for the last 4 years with my daughter, we just went along the shore and picked up, you know,
Sure.
what would otherwise be discarded in the basura, in the trash.
Right.
And then I kind of restored them and recovered them with domestic construction materials like resin,
Beautiful.
house paint, and you know, and then cast these foam figures. And are there any images or references that you feel are the works are speaking to in the collection? Like, I know we have here the Virgin Mary, But are there any similarities
Well,
you're seeing?
I see the female, sense of this is me. I'm aware of, other human beings, and sometimes depends. I see. Well, am I fat? No, you're not fat. You. This is the way it is. I mean, I think it's telling a story, of the female figure itself. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and I can see all of it, all together.
And what do you see? I mean, just to kind of pivot for a moment back to, the center and kind of its future. I mean, I think it's very exciting. You're at this moment where you have this really incredible collection. You're ready to share it with the world.
Sure.
In this really dynamic way. I think the plan is very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
What do you see as some of the challenges ahead of you as you begin this? I mean, or rather continue the project, which you hope to start construction and fundraising and all of that.
No, on the contrary. Well, we have the various museums that we're building to house the colonial artwork and the European artwork as well. So the environment will be. But then again, we will have places and spaces for contemporary art. So everybody's welcome. You may like Renaissance art pieces, but you may like very contemporary artwork, and that's the whole thing. We're not concentrating just one thing. It's art in general.
Right.
It's like we're within the Catholic Church thing, but we welcome everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what religion you are, you're welcome. Experience, feel it, sense it.
Do you feel that there are things to overcome? I mean, because the history. Sometimes, I mean, as we drive around Miami right now, some of the synagogues and churches are heavily armed, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I think at least for me as a parent, there's some challenges in terms of where we are in American history right now, kind of the political conflicts that have certainly come to the fore, especially for the Latin American population.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for example, immigration is a very challenging issue. Certainly religious wars, that goes back hundreds of years. Do you feel that, that there are any challenges to overcome in the process of construction and making this available to the public that are particular to Miami, or do you feel like if you were to do it in DC, it would be the same thing?
No, it would be the same thing. Like for instance, we have a lot of humble Latin America family coming to see the chapel. Mm-hmm. And when they visit the chapel and they look around, it reminds them of chapels in their own country. Oh my goodness. And they never pay attention while they were in the country.
Right.
So it so happens that this brings them back. As soon as they go back to the country, they start visiting the chapel and say, look what the culture we have here.
Wow, so it creates a sense of home or familiarity.
Exactly, number one. Number two, also, we Hispanics we have built this together, and we'll show in America, number one, we say, thank you, America, for giving us an opportunity to restart our life anew.
Right.
But let us show you what our, art is, our culture.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of Americans stopping by the garden. I say, wow, this is magnificent. I never know this existed. Well, it is our culture. Yeah. We're sharing it with you. Yeah. So it's a gift. It's a win-win situation what we're doing.
So maybe you're able to kind of deconstruct some of the stigmas of the.
Oh, absolutely, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. They say, well, we didn't know this, and it's happening.
Yeah.
So I think it's that is what is moving us.
And you're in the fundraising process, preparing to start the construction.
Right,
you have the design already.
Yes.
So what would you like to share with the public about kind of what the next step is, and how can the public help to enable this vision that you've been working on?
Well, it's just that it takes money, of course, to to do this, and we're doing it mostly from private donors and so forth. But like I said, like I told Father Menendez not too long ago, I said, out of a piece of, out of a pie, we have 2/3 of the pie. We have the land, which is very important, especially here, with the space. If you were to go out and you have this dream and you wanted to build, finding 10 acres of land, that's very expensive. We have that. Number two, we have the collections. So what we need is a third portion, which is the money to build, to house a collection.
And the Catholic Church, kind of internationally or nationally or
nationally, locally, it's helping us, but very limited. It's this is something that we do in the public at large. What we do it, that we feel.
It's almost like some of the objects in the collection I've seen.
Well, the land
UNESCO
belongs to the Catholic
World
Church. They have
Heritage.
given it to us. That's very
wow.
generous.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And is there anything kind of in closing that you want to share? Just
no.
in general about the
Like I said,
project,
this is now we have something to show what it's going to look like in the future. We have a maquette. Maybe you can take pictures later on, and the dream and part of the collection that we're housing here. So that, see, we don't ask the public, give me some money to it. No. We're sharing what we have, and say, if you think that this has merit, help us in any way you can. If you have some documents, painting you want to donate, great. It's not gonna be for resale. It's gonna remain here. Number one. Number two, if it is cash, you have, God has given you the opportunity to make a good living, and you have cash. If you donate cash, it's tax deductible, so it's a win-win situation as well. And we need also cash to get moving. So anything will help us to promote that. We will welcome with open arms.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias.
You're welcome.
This has really been such an honor to exhibit with this collection, and I really hope that that we can work together in the future and build this vision that you have. I mean,
our
it's
vision.
What an incredible legacy.
Everybody's, we're all together on this.
To leave, but I'm very excited. Bueno, muchísimas gracias. Un placer. Thank you so much.
Now, let me tell you something. I'm very shy when it comes to interviews.
You were so good.
Shy.
No te parece?
The first time that I was interviewed was back in '85 when I opened the gallery on Coral Way, and I had about 100 persons. And I was supposed to give a speech about 18th century French furniture, which is something that I know quite well, and I had the audience. When I got up to speak, I was speechless. I couldn't talk.
Everyone has that.
So,
it's so
a friend of mine, from Washington, he was here, says, ladies and gentlemen, let me say something to you. This is not Ray. He knows it's obvious, this, that, and that. I know it happens to me too, but anyway, I have tried to put this out of my,
You've done a great job. You did such a good job. Muy bien. Everybody has it though.
Oh my
God.
God.
I've heard even like really seasoned public speakers, they say the same thing. They also get the stage fright.
Oh.
And they just work